Horizons now. In getting organised with time management, we're looking at giving you tools for planning that could save you 1 hour a day. Imagine that, an hour a day. Who would like an hour a day lopped off their workload? So, using good organisation means that you can save yourself a huge hour a day becomes 5 days a week, 20 hours a month, and over 200 hours. That's a lot of time that you could be using other things and doing other things in that time. So we like to use something called time horizons. Now, you schedule time horizons. I don't know if any of you have ever come across this before. Have you ever heard of the time horizons tool? Okay, so time horizons is something that we put together at Cellular Attitude a few years ago. And what the idea is that we actually have 3 distinct periods of time that we work with. Immediate, that means it needs to be done now. The near horizon, which is coming up very soon. And then obviously the far horizon means it's away in the future. Okay, so obviously you look at the immediate things, classify those, horizon, and classify your far horizon objectives. Some of these will be tasks, some will be projects, some will be deadlines. Create 3 columns. We're going to show you this in more detail in a minute. When you've dealt with the immediate, and of course that's if you need to deal with it, and we're going to come on to delay, dump, do a bit later. But when you're looking at the immediate, when you look at what's left, don't just do what's next. What you've got to do is say, right, what do I do next that can actually bring the far horizon into a more completed state quicker? Because that way what happens is, down the line, you're going to have far more time free than you could possibly have. Just that step back to move forward, okay? It's all about working out the priority. Let's look at anticipating events. Immediate attention, near on the time horizon, far on the time horizon. Now, the priority that most people operate in standard time management or standard thought processes is this. I do the immediate attention first, I do near on the time horizon second, and I do far on the time horizon third. Simple process that would appear obvious, and yet what I'm about to show you, a little bit more complicated, is actually a far better way of doing things. So the time horizon master thinks differently. Let's look at immediate attention. Obviously, immediate attention you deal with first. However, if it needs to be done, because not everything that you think needs to be done now really does. And if not, you move it out in the time zone. So if it doesn't need to be done now, send it along to the near or even far, or even take it out of the time zone completely by dumping it. Now, when you've completed those tasks that are left, you then look at near on the time horizon. Now, these can be split into 2 items. Items that bring the far horizon closer to completion, and items that don't necessarily have anything to do with the far horizon. Do the far horizon items, or the ones that are connected to the far horizon first. By doing that, what you're doing is effectively dealing with future issues before they get near. What then happens is you can look at the lower priority items, because on the very next day, the items that were left, that were near on the time horizon, have moved into immediate attention, and you can deal with those. But when you go back to doing near on the time horizon the next day, what you found is things on the far time horizon disappearing. And all of a sudden, you won't have far on the time horizon. You'll only have near and immediate. And then you won't have any immediate because you'll be dealing with those. And near will be virtually nothing. Before you know it, you won't understand how you've got nothing to do when you were so overwhelmed with everything before. Very interesting process. It's because you start dealing with the far before you deal with the near, which seems counterintuitive and think that doesn't make any sense. And yet by doing that, what happens is the near moves into the immediate that's been vacated by the immediate. The far you were dealing with, there's nothing left in the near, and already you've just found yourself acres of time with which to work. And when you've eventually got through all of your major priority things, what's left can only be the lower priorities. Irrespective of where they are on the time horizon, its priority is everything. What's important, it doesn't matter where it is what you do first, not where these things are on the horizon. Does that make sense? It takes a little bit of getting used to, but we're going to look into this in a lot more detail about anticipation. Just want you to consider the possibility of a polychronic time management process where you deal with stuff that would appear to be less urgent or less near on the time zone if it's got a higher value to your time later. So let me use this as an example. There was a chap I was talking to, went to university, very interesting, and he found it very hard to deal with far on the horizon items. Immediate attention was easy because it was there and it needed to be done straight away. But what would happen is he would do immediate, some of the near stuff, and not worry about the far stuff until it had moved into near and then moved into immediate. Now, the thing is, what it really means is that by only dealing with the immediate items, because we're not dealing with what's far away, work fills up the space of time we have. If you can, it takes you 3 hours to do this. If you knew you only had 2 hours, because in 2 hours time you were going on a date or you had something very special you wanted to do, but you had to finish, fit within your given time the work. It's a little bit like that scene in Schindler's List where the prisoner is in the concentration camp and it is the watch and he makes him work really quickly. He goes, very good. 17 seconds. What time did your shift start? He goes, 6 o'clock. He goes, well, you should have many more hinges in there. That was the scene where they tried to go out and shoot him, the gun wouldn't work, and the guy said, look, my machine was cleaned, I couldn't work. The point is, if we have to, we can work harder. And what happens in people's lives is the immediate stuff we deal with immediately, and we become less worried about near and less worried about far, because now we can deal with it later. But if you deal with the immediate stuff that you need to do, and then start looking at the far stuff before you look at the near stuff, what happens is you start dealing with the stuff in the far horizon so that when it comes down to it, your immediate list gets shorter and shorter and shorter over time till there is nothing on immediate and all you're doing is managing near and far horizon stuff, and you eradicate immediate. And that takes away a huge amount of stress. And a lot of university students only worry about the immediate, not about the far. So come the last few weeks of university, they are cramming in, trying to think, trying to remember, trying to do everything, because in reality, in the first term of the last year, they were working, ish hard. But then they suddenly go into full 100% mode because they've only got the immediate and they've run out of time. But if they worked a bit harder earlier, or worked more focused earlier, what would happen is that when it came to the cramming, there wouldn't be any cramming because they'd have done it. Does that give a better way of understanding this concept? Okay, good.